Hello, my friends. Welcome back to Next Speak. On this channel, we learn English in a natural and enjoyable way. And one of the best ways to learn a language is through stories. Stories are emotional, interesting, and easy for our brains to remember. So in this series, I tell famous stories from world literature, but I tell them in slow, clear, and simple English. This helps English learners understand more easily. While you listen, you will hear many useful English words and expressions. Sometimes I may use a word that is a little difficult. But don't worry, I will explain the meaning inside the story. I will repeat the idea in different ways so that you understand the word naturally. This is the best way to learn English vocabulary, through context. So relax, listen carefully, and enjoy the story. Today's story is called The Necklace. It was written by the famous French writer Guy de Maupassant. He was known for writing short stories about everyday people and their lives. Many of his stories have a strong message about life, pride, happiness, and human choices. This story is about a woman who wants a beautiful life, but she learns a very difficult lesson. Before we begin, please take a second to give this video a thumbs up. It really helps the channel grow and helps more English learners find these lessons. Let's begin. Many years ago in the city of Paris, there lived a young woman named Mathilde Loiseau. Mathilde was a very beautiful woman. She had soft skin, dark shining eyes, and a natural elegance. The word elegance means a kind of simple beauty and grace. When someone is elegant, they move and behave in a refined and attractive way. Mathilde had this natural elegance, but she did not have something she wanted very much. She did not have wealth. Wealth means a lot of money and expensive things. Wealthy people live in comfortable houses, wear beautiful clothes, and often attend elegant parties. Mathilde dreamed of this kind of life, but the truth was very different. She was married to a simple man named Mr. Loiseau. He worked as a clerk in the Ministry of Education. A clerk is a person who works in an office doing paperwork and administrative tasks. It is an honest job, but it does not bring a lot of money. Their apartment was small, the furniture was old, the walls were plain, the curtains were simple. Nothing in their home felt luxurious. The word luxurious describes something rich, expensive, and very comfortable. And this made Mathilde very unhappy. She believed she had been born for a better life every day. She imagined beautiful things. She imagined large, elegant rooms with shining chandeliers. A chandelier is a large decorative light that hangs from the ceiling, often made of glass crystals. She imagined long dining tables with silver plates and delicious food. She imagined wearing beautiful dresses made of silk. She imagined people admiring her beauty. The word admire means to look at someone with respect, appreciation, or fascination. When people admire you, they notice your beauty, talent, or success. So Mathilde wanted people to admire her, but instead she lived a simple life. Sometimes she sat near the window and watched the rich people walking in the street. The women wore beautiful dresses and sparkling jewelry. Jewelry means decorative items like rings, bracelets, earrings, and necklaces made of gold, silver, or precious stones. When Mathilde saw these women, she felt something heavy in her heart. She felt envy. She felt the painful feeling we get when we want something that someone else has. It is not just wanting something, it is wanting it because someone else has it. Mathilde envied the rich women. She thought her life was unfair. Sometimes she cried quietly. Her husband, Mr. Loiseau, was actually a kind and gentle man. He did not have big dreams about wealth. He believed they had a comfortable life. One evening he came home looking excited. He had a large envelope in his hand. He said happily, "Mathilde, I have wonderful news." But Mathilde looked tired and uninterested. She said, "What is it?" Her husband opened the envelope carefully and handed her a beautiful card. "Look," he said, "we have been invited to a ball. A ball is a formal party where people dress in elegant clothes, dance, and socialize. These events are usually attended by wealthy or important people. This invitation was very special. It was from the Minister of Education himself." Mr. Loiseau continued speaking with excitement. "Do you understand how rare this is?" he said. "Many people in my office wanted an invitation like this, but very few received one." He smiled proudly. "I worked very hard to get it for us," he said. But when Mathilde read the invitation, something surprising happened. She did not smile. She did not look excited. Instead, she slowly placed a card on the table. Then she sighed deeply. Her husband looked confused. He asked, "What's wrong?" Mathilde spoke quietly. "What do you expect me to wear?" Her husband blinked. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I don't have a dress for a ball like this," she said with frustration. Her voice began to shake. "How can I go to such an elegant event wearing the same clothes I wear every day?" She looked down at the floor. Her husband had not thought about this problem. He had only imagined how happy she would be. He thought for a moment. Then he said gently, "Well, you could buy a new dress." Mathilde looked up quickly. "A new dress?" she repeated. "Yes," he said, something simple but beautiful. But Mathilde knew beautiful dresses were expensive, very expensive. She asked slowly, "How much do you think a dress like that costs?" Her husband hesitated. He was saving money for something special. For a long time he had wanted to buy a rifle so he could go hunting with his friends on Sundays. But when she looked at Matilda's sad face, he made a decision. "How much would you need?" he asked carefully. Matilda thought for a moment. She did not want to ask for too much. Finally, she said quietly, "Maybe 400 francs. Mr. Loisel's face became pale. 400 francs was a lot of money. It was exactly the amount he had saved for his rifle, but he loved his wife and he wanted her to be happy. So after a small moment, he forced a small smile. "All right," he said softly. "I will give you 400 francs. Mathilde's eyes suddenly shone with happiness. For the first time that evening, she smiled. She immediately began imagining the dress she would wear, the elegant fabric, the beautiful shape, the attention she would receive at the ball. But she did not know that this small decision, a dress for one evening, would soon change their lives in a way she could never imagine. And a real problem had not even begun yet, because soon, Mathilde would realize something else was missing. Something she believed she absolutely needed, a beautiful necklace. And this necklace would change everything. So after Mathilde received the money for the dress, she became much happier. For several days, she visited shops in Paris looking carefully at different fabrics, colors, and styles. She wanted the dress to be beautiful, but also elegant and simple. Finally, she found one that she loved. It was graceful, soft, and flattering. The word flattering means that something makes a person look more beautiful or attractive. When Mathilde tried on the dress, she felt excited. She imagined entering the ballroom. She imagined people turning their heads to look at her. For the first time in a long time, she felt hopeful. Her husband was pleased to see her smiling again. He believed the problem was solved. But one evening, as the date of the ball came closer, he noticed something strange. Mathilde looked worried again. She sat quietly near the window and stared outside. Mr. Loisel asked, "What is the matter now?" Mathilde sighed. "I have nothing to wear on my neck. No jewelry, not even a single piece." Mathilde continued speaking. "If I go to the ball like this, I will look poor. Everyone will see immediately that I have nothing beautiful." Her husband tried to comfort her. "Well," he said, "you could wear flowers?" "Flowers," Mathilde repeated. "Yes," he said, "fresh flowers. They are very fashionable right now. A few beautiful roses would look lovely." Mathilde shook her head slowly. She said, "Number." Her voice was quiet but firm. "There is nothing more humiliating than looking poor among rich women. The word humiliating means something that makes a person feel embarrassed, ashamed, or small in front of others. Mathilde did not want to feel humiliated." Mr. Loisel thought again. Then suddenly he had an idea. He said, "Wait, I have a friend, Madame Forestier. She's rich, isn't she?" Mathilde's eyes brightened. "Yes, she is. Then why don't you ask her to lend you some jewelry?" The word lend means to give something to someone for a short time expecting it to be returned later. Mathilde suddenly stood up. "That is a wonderful idea," she said. The next day she went to visit her friend, Madame Forestier. Madame Forestier lived in a beautiful apartment. Everything inside was elegant and expensive. When Mathilde entered, she felt the same familiar feeling in her heart, that painful mixture of admiration and envy. But she tried to smile. After greeting her friend warmly, she explained the situation. "I have been invited to a ball," she said, "but I have no jewelry. Could you possibly lend me something?" Madame Forestier was kind. "Of course," she said, "easily choose whatever you like." She opened a large jewelry box. Inside were many beautiful pieces. There were bracelets of gold. There were pearl necklaces. There were delicate rings. Mathilde began trying different pieces. She looked at herself in the mirror, but none of them felt quite right. Then Madame Forestier opened another small box. Inside was a magnificent diamond necklace. Diamonds are very precious stones that shine brilliantly in the light. The necklace sparkled with bright cold fire. Mathilde gasped softly. Her heart began beating quickly. "May I try this one?" she asked. "Of course," said Madame Forestier. Mathilde placed the necklace around her neck. When she looked in the mirror, she almost did not recognize herself. She looked beautiful, no more than beautiful. She looked radiant, shining with beauty, happiness, and almost glowing. The diamonds caught the light and reflected it in many directions. For a moment, Mathilde felt as if she truly belonged in the world. She had always imagined, "Could you lend this to me?" she asked nervously. Madame Forestier smiled. Certainly, Mathilde embraced her friend with gratitude. She thanked her again and again. Then she carefully carried the necklace home. That evening, she stood in front of the mirror many times. She admired her reflection, her beautiful dress, the shining diamonds. She felt proud at last. She believed she would have the evening she deserved. Finally, the night of the ball arrived. The grand building was full of lights. Music flowed through the halls. Carriages arrived one after another. They brought guests in elegant clothing. Mathilde and her husband entered together. At first, she felt nervous, but soon something wonderful happened. People began noticing her. Men asked her to dance. Women looked at her dress. Many admired her necklace. She felt admired, desired, and important. She was surrounded by attention. Mathilde had dreamed of this moment for years, and now it was real. She danced again and again. She felt confident and graceful. Even the minister himself noticed her. Mr. Loisel, meanwhile, sat quietly in a small room with several other husbands whose wives were also enjoying the ball. He was tired, but he was happy to see Mathilde so joyful. Hours passed, the music continued, the lights shone brightly. Mathilde did not want the evening to end. Finally, near 4 in the morning, the ball began to finish. Guests slowly started leaving. Mathilde and her husband prepared to go home. The magical night was over, but she still wanted to see herself once more in the mirror. She removed the coat. She stepped in front of the mirror and suddenly she froze. Her face turned pale. Her hands began to shake. "The necklace," she whispered, "spurred, it's gone." The diamond necklace was no longer around her neck, and in that moment, Mathilde and her husband realized that beautiful evening had suddenly turned into something terrifying. For several seconds, Mathilde could not move. She stood frozen in front of the mirror. She stared at her empty neck. They began searching immediately. Mathilde checked the folds of her dress. Mr. Loisel looked inside the coat. They searched the pockets, the floor, and the furniture. But the necklace was nowhere. Panic began to grow inside them. Mr. Loisel said maybe it fell in the street. Mathilde shook her head nervously. "I remember touching it when we left a ballroom. Then it must have fallen somewhere between the ballroom and here," he said. His voice was tense now. It was full of stress and worry. They both understood something terrible. The necklace was lost and it did not belong to them. It belonged to Madame Forestier. Mr. Loisel immediately put on his clothes again. "I will go back," he said. "I will follow the same streets we took." He left the apartment quickly and disappeared into the dark morning streets of Paris. Mathilde remained at home. She sat in a chair, still wearing her ball dress. Hours passed slowly. The sky outside the window began to grow lighter. Morning arrived. Finally, around 7 o'clock, Mr. Lau returned. His face looked exhausted. He said quietly, "I found nothing." Mathilde began to cry. Her husband tried to remain calm. He said, "We must think carefully. You must write to Madame Forestier." Mathilde said, "Write to her." He said, "Yes. Tell her that the clasp of the necklace is broken. The clasp is a small piece that closes a necklace or bracelet. Tell her we are repairing it. That will give us time." Mathilde said, "Time to do what he said." He said, "Time to find a necklace or time to replace it." Mathilde quickly wrote the letter. Her hands were still shaking. They needed to replace the necklace. The next day they went to the jewelry shops of Paris. They visited one store after another. They described the necklace carefully. A diamond necklace, elegant, shining with a delicate design. Finally, in one shop, they found something similar. Very similar. The price was 40,000 francs. Mr. Loiseau felt dizzy. 40,000 francs was an enormous amount of money. It was extremely large. It was far more money than they had ever imagined. After speaking with the shop owner, they negotiated. To negotiate means to discuss something in order to reach an agreement. Finally, the price was lowered to 36,000 francs, but even that amount was impossible for them. Mr. Loiseau had some savings left by his father, about 18,000 francs, but the rest, the other 18,000, they would need to borrow. And borrowing money can be dangerous. They had to return it with interest. He spoke with moneylenders. Some people gave him a small amounts, others demanded high interest, but he had no choice. He signed many papers, he made many promises, he accepted terrible financial conditions. Finally, after many painful days, he collected enough money. 36,000 francs. They bought the replacement necklace. Then she went to visit Madame Forster. Her heart was beating loudly. She was afraid her friend would notice something. When Madame Forster opened the door, Mathilde forced herself to remain calm. She handed the box to her friend. "Here is your necklace." She said. Madame Forster opened the box. She looked at the necklace briefly, then she placed it back in the box. She did not examine it closely. She did not notice the difference. But she did say something that made Mathilde nervous. "You should have returned it sooner," Madame Forster said. "I might have needed." It nodded quickly. "Yes, of course." Then she left. The secret was safe. Very soon, the L's life changed completely. They now had a huge debt. They dismissed their servant. They moved to a smaller apartment. Mathilde began doing all the housework herself. She washed dishes. She cleaned floors. She carried water. She washed clothes by hand, work that she had never done before. The years that followed were extremely difficult for Mathilde and her husband. Their life changed completely before the necklace was lost. Mathilde had complained about her simple life. She had believed she was very unhappy because she did not have luxury. But now she discovered what real hardship looked like. They moved to a small, cheap apartment in a poor neighborhood of Paris. The rooms were narrow, the walls were old, the stairs were dark, and worn. Mathilde no longer had a servant. Before this, a servant had done many of the daily tasks. But now Mathilde had to do everything herself. One Sunday afternoon, Mathilde was walking in the park. She now sometimes walked in the park to rest and think life was no longer as difficult as before. But the years of work had left their mark. As she was. As she walked along the path, she suddenly noticed a familiar face. It was Madame Forster. Her old friend looked young and beautiful, just as she had many years before. She wore elegant clothes, her hair was perfect, her life seemed comfortable and easy. Mathilde hesitated for a moment. She wondered if she should speak to her. Then she made a decision. She walked forward. "Good afternoon, Jean," she said. Madame Forster looked at her. At first she did not recognize Mathilde. She saw only a tired-looking woman. Mathilde said, "It's me, Mathilde Zell." Madame Forster's eyes widened with surprise. "Oh," she said, "my poor Mathilde, how you have changed." Changed? Yes, Mathilde had changed. She now looked like a woman who had lived a difficult life. Mathilde nodded slowly. "Yes, I have had a hard life since the last time we saw each other." Madame Forster looked confused. "Since the last time we saw each other?" she asked. Mathilde said yes, since the night of the ball. Then Mathilde decided to tell her the truth. For 10 years she had carried this secret. Now she felt ready to speak. "You remember the necklace you lent me?" Madame Forster said yes. "Well, I lost it." Madame Forster looked shocked. "You lost it?" Mathilde said, "Yes. We searched everywhere, but we could not find it, so we replaced it." Madame Forster said, "You replaced it?" Mathilde said yes. "We bought another necklace, just like it." Her voice became heavier. "It cost 36,000 francs. Madame Forster gasped softly. Mathilde continued speaking. "We borrowed the money. It took us 10 years to repay everything." There was a long silence. Madame Forster stared at her friend with disbelief. Finally she spoke. "Oh, my poor Mathilde. My necklace was not real." Mathilde stared at her. "What do you mean?" she asked slowly. Madame Forrester answered gently. The necklace I lent you was imitation jewelry. The word imitation means something that looks real, but is actually fake. It is made to look valuable, but it is not truly valuable. Madame Forrester continued. It was worth maybe 500 francs. 500 francs, not 36,000. 500. Mathilde stood silent. The meaning of those words slowly entered her mind. 10 years of hardship, 10 years of a struggle, 10 years of sacrifice. All for a necklace that had never been real. And that is the tragic irony of the story. Mathilde had wanted to look rich for one evening. She wanted to appear wealthy and admired. But that desire destroyed 10 years of her life. And in the end, she learned a painful truth. Sometimes the things we believe are valuable are not valuable at all. And sometimes our pride, our desire to appear better than we are, can lead us into terrible mistakes. That is the quiet lesson of the necklace. A story about pride, a story about illusion, and a story about how one small decision can change a life forever.